What's up guys, and welcome back to the Kamui dimension. Boruto chapter 73 is out, so let's dive right into it. The chapter is titled Special Mission because Team 7 gets a special mission. In the covers of Sarada for some reason, even though she doesn't really do anything important in this chapter. But I guess they had to give her something to make up for her lack of relevance in the manga, but whatever. Just as I anticipated, we start off the chapter with Team 7 walking to the Hokage office for the meeting that Shikamaru called for, where they are wondering what the mission might be, and when we get there, we see that Kawaki, Sumire, Shikamaru, and Konohamaru are already there. Boruto then thinks to himself about how this is the first time he's seen Kawaki since he's revived, which isn't even true. He literally was standing in the same room as Kawaki, right here in this panel in chapter 71, when Shikamaru told everyone about Eida's ability, but that's besides the point. Kawaki casually says,
"Yo, I can't believe you revived yourself. What a shock."
Which makes it seem like he doesn't even really care that Boruto survived that ordeal. And then Boruto apologizes for all the fuss and says he's perfectly fine now. Sumire then remembers Kawaki asking Naruto if Naruto will condemn him for killing Boruto, and then she starts simping for Boruto, and while everyone's talking, Kawaki is just staring coldly at Boruto. And then Konohamaru interrupts to start talking about the mission, and it looks like Konohamaru is no longer stoned like he was last chapter. Shikamaru explains that the Leaf Village has been subject to especially perilous situations lately, and then he says,
"First, Boruto, for quite a while now, we've had no idea when Momoshiki might take over your consciousness and run amok. Yet, not only have we not found any concrete solutions, your physical body has now become completely Otsutsuki."
Which gets Boruto all worried, and then Shikamaru says,
"Next, you, Kawaki. Not that you were ever docile, but now that you got karma back, plus Ishiki's abilities, you're an entity that we can no longer control at all."
Which, as a side note, is yet again another statement saying that Kawaki is the strongest person in the Leaf Village, to Shikamaru and Naruto's knowledge anyway. So again, I'm telling you guys, Kawaki is stronger than current Naruto and Sasuke, whether you like that or not. They keep telling us this over and over again for a reason. You just have to accept it. Anyway, Shikamaru continues and says, even if, unlike Boruto, there's no risk of Ishiki actually possessing you anymore, from the standpoint that we can't keep that power in check, frankly, as the ones responsible for maintaining the peace and order of the village, we have to treat you as a threat. And right now, Shikamaru is basically just further planting the seeds for Kawaki's rift with the village, because not only did Shikamaru and Kawaki already have a rough relationship and lack of trust for one another, now he's just straight up telling Kawaki he's a threat. And then Kawaki japs back and says,
"Hey, why don't you just come out and say it?"
But Boruto chimes in and tells Kawaki not to get all defensive, because Shikamaru is just spitting facts about the current state of the village, and making sure everyone realizes that. And Shikamaru goes as far as to say that's right. I feel bad for having to put it so bluntly to you, but Konoha is currently bearing these two giant bombs right now. So I wanted to start off with all of you fully aware of this. He then cuts to the chase about Amado and Code and says that Amado called not too long ago, to which Kawaki is like,
"He survived? Persistent bastard."
Showing us that Kawaki still isn't too fond of Amado, which isn't very surprising. And Shikamaru continues saying, we still don't know exactly how he got out of danger, but in the process, it seems he resigned at the limiters suppressing Code's power. Now, we all know that Amado, realistically, could have gone away with not doing that if he really wanted to, let's be real here, but he's a shady, slimy dude and capping his way through every conversation he has with Shikamaru. And I love Boruto's reaction here. He's like,
"Damn it, what is wrong with that old man?"
Clearly, Boruto knows that Amado is a Sasibaka. However, Shikamaru says, I'm sure it was unavoidable. yeah, right. In any case, with his full power restored, I hear Code's strength exceeds even Jigen's, whom it took both Naruto and Sasuke together to drive back. And then Shikamaru says what a lot of us have been theorizing about Code's strength, since Amado kept saying Code, Eida, Daemon, and those other cyborgs were stronger than Jigen specifically, and not necessarily stronger than Ishiki himself. As he says, then again, it should still be less than Ishiki Otsutsuki's. So while he's definitely a formidable foe, we should be able to deal with him. And he probably means, like, with Kawaki's power, if he's, like, Ishiki's strength again, you know, I'm guessing that's what he means anyway. So, I like that line there. It basically is Kishimoto's way of saying, yep, you guys were probably right about that. And I also like this because now it gives Code a chance to strive to surpass Ishiki eventually, which is something I would like to see personally, so that Kawaki is also forced to surpass Ishiki too. Sarada then asks if the mission is to take down Code using Boruto and Kawaki's Sasuke powers, but Shikamaru says no, that's not it, and he mentions how when Code attacked them a few chapters ago, a certain woman showed up, and that woman is Eida, whose ability instantly enchants everyone in her presence and renders them powerless. And he admits that he couldn't do anything, and that he and Delta could have dealt with just Code if it wasn't for Eida. And then Mitsuki interrupts and says, then how are we supposed to stand against someone like that? And Shikamaru explains that there's a hole in her ability. Apparently, Atsuki are immune to its effect. At the present, Boruto and Kawaki, these two bomb brats Konoha is harboring, are our one and only battle asset against Eida's ability. And I still think Mitsuki's first interaction with Eida is going to be extremely interesting to see, because that's going to tell us right then and there whether or not Mitsuki is actually part of Atsuki, if people have theorized or not. So, personally, I can't wait to see their first interaction eventually. It's either going to be completely hilarious because Mitsuki will be super flirty and gawking over Eida, or it'll be super interesting because he's completely normal and unaffected around her. But anyway, Team 7 then assumes that their mission is to take down Eida, but Shikamaru says, nope, that's not it either. We then cut to the train ride with Amado, Eida, and Daemon, and Eida says, I wonder what Shikadira is planning, while she just watches with her Senrigan, and Amado is just observing her. Sarada then starts asking what they're supposed to do, and Boruto begs to hear what the mission is, and Shikamaru tells him to just relax because he's getting to that now. And he says, Eida originally showed up in front of us as Code's ally and collaborator. However, my and Amado's plan bore fruit, and as a result, she cut her ties with Code. And then Kawaki magically isn't all grumpy anymore and says, what do you mean? Shikamaru says, essentially, Code is on his own. He may have regained full power, but he lost his powerful comrades. And Boruto's happy to hear that, and Sarada asks what Eida's status is now, to which Shikamaru says, she's currently heading here, to Konoha. Kawaki asks,
What the? You mean she jumped ship to our side?
And Shikamaru says that's right, and there lies the issue. All skills in jutsu are powerless thanks to her ability, and the Hokage's power and influence mean nothing to her. She doesn't need to follow anyone's orders. If she wanted to, it wouldn't be difficult for her to take over not just Konoha or the Land of Fire, but the entire world. I'm not exaggerating, that's how much freedom she has. You get it, right? We've got to avoid making an enemy out of her at all costs. And to that end, I devise this next mission of yours. It wouldn't be an overstatement to say that it all hinges on your actions, whether Eida ends up as a friend or foe to Konoha. And honestly, I kind of have to disagree with this. Eida can spy on Shikamaru and the others all she wants with her Senrigan, so Shikamaru's lack of trust in his missions to spy on Eida could actually end up turning Eida off more than anything Team 7 does, since Eida can just hear all of Shikamaru's conversations. And Eida still likely has her own ulterior motives with Kawaki, outside of just making love with him anyway. Sarada then asks what Shikamaru wants them to do, and he says, cohabitate. That's right guys, the title of this video is correct. Shikamaru wants Kawaki to sleep with Eida. In all seriousness though, Sarada's like, huh? And Boruto asks what cohabitate means, which is stupid because Boruto started off the series as a genius who gets stuff instantly, but lately, they've been turning him into more of a Naruto clone by having him be the clueless person who doesn't understand things. But anyway, Mitsuki says it means to live together, and Kawaki's like,
you're kidding, right?
And Konohamaru finally speaks and says, not at all! We're being absolutely serious! Listen, it's not gonna be like some ultra fun Team 7 boarding house. The only ones cohabitating will be Boruto, Kawaki, and Eida. And then everyone but Mitsuki gets shocked by this, and then Eida covers her face and starts sweating, so Amado asks, what's the matter? And Eida's like, living together from the get-go! Kawaki and Boruto then start complaining, but Sarada understands what the mission's actual goal is, and that's surveillance. And Shikamaru says that her intuition is correct, and says, I've already explained Eida's level of risk. Normally, regulations would dictate that she be monitored, however, our usual methods would likely end up getting compromised, because there's a chance that the Watchers would voluntarily do things that are favorable to her, even if Eida herself didn't deliberately try anything. In that respect, Otsutsuki won't become captives of hers. Thus, only Boruto and Kawaki can fill these roles. Boruto then asks if they're basically supposed to be her watchdogs to make sure she doesn't stir up mischief, and Shikamaru says, yeah, that's right. In any case, they need to determine how willing she is to actually cooperate with Konoha. Kawaki then asks,
what did I do to earn this? Besides, what if she decides she's not on board with this plan?
And Shikamaru says if that's the case, she'll have to give up her chance to be allowed inside Konoha, because this is a safety measure that they can't budge on. Mitsuki then says, but isn't that a too forceful a starting stance? But Shikamaru says, well, we don't want to do anything to piss her off, of course, but we need to draw the line somewhere. And we'll end up tightening the noose around our own necks if we give her the upper hand with a weak deal. Besides, I have a feeling that she'll be game about this cohabitation proposal. And Mitsuki asks why that is.
Seriously? You asked why?
And my goodness, man, this chapter is so text heavy. I feel like I'm reading every panel to you guys. But anyway, Shikamaru says, it's awkward for me to be saying this, but since it's crucial to the success of this mission, Eida has a crush on you, Kawaki. And Kawaki looks a bit confused, and everyone else looks shocked. And then this is where things just get ridiculous, because now Eida starts being super dramatic and puts her hands on her head and starts blushing so hard and says, "Aye, he said it! Aw, Shika dear, how could you?" Amado's then like,
huh? What happened? What have they been talking about since earlier?
And then Daemon is like,
"Wow, you okay, Big Sis? Your heart's ba-dumping out of this world."
And Eida is sweating super hard and says, "Ugh, I might die before we reach Konoha." Like, my goodness, man, Eida is horny as hell. She really is female Jiraiya. So on that note, like this video, subscribe to the channel, and comment female Jiraiya in the comment section below, because that is clearly the biggest takeaway from this chapter. And Amado just looks super confused by all this, and Eida says,
"But don't worry, Daemon, it's fine. In fact, it's more than fine. This is exactly what I've been seeking. Right now, I am truly, fatally in love."
And I still think Eida is capping just a little bit about the love thing. I'm not gonna let that go. But she is definitely happy about sharing a room with Kawaki, just like Shikamaru predicted she would be. Because like Shikamaru says, this is Eida's #1 reason for coming to Konoha. Kawaki, I don't want to intrude on your private life or personal feelings, but just be really careful how you react towards her. I'm not exaggerating when I say that Konoha's future hinges on your conduct. And Kawaki's like, damn it, for real. And I still can't wait to see Kawaki and Eida's first interaction. I bet the anime will make it hilarious, and I hope the manga does as well. Boruto then says, hey, any ordinary person crushes on Eida, right? So she's got a huge pool to pick from. Why go after Kawaki, whom her ability doesn't work? Sumire then finally speaks and says,
This is purely a guess on my part, but
isn't it a bit distasteful to think that someone likes you because of an innate ability or some jutsu of yours? I think that this Miss Eida wants to experience a completely ordinary romance. Not that I know for sure. And Mitsuki's just thinking to himself. And as we know, Sumire is completely right, at least as far as what Eida has told us anyway. However, Kawaki disagrees and says,
I don't get it. That's just plain illogical. Maybe she's stupid.
And man, I really can't wait to see this man face to face with Eida when she starts gawking all over him. He's gonna be like, what's wrong with you, you freaking weirdo? Shikamaru then says, by the way, you should avoid saying bad things about her because Eida can see everything and hear it all. She has those abilities too. And then everyone is shocked about that. And he goes on to explain that she might not be watching us right now, but she can also replay past events, kind of like skimming through a video recording. And so they should consider everything here leaked already, and he's disclosing this mission to them knowing that. and so the diplomatic maneuvering has already begun. Right, Eida? And Eida is just watching. So Shikamaru is basically saying, hey, I know you can hear me, Eida, but that's okay. I still have to be wary of you for the sake of the Leaf Village. Kawaki then basically says, okay, so I have to be nice to Eida and monitor her. And Shikamaru's like, yep, we really appreciate it. And Kawaki starts complaining and says,
I don't really like this. I'd much rather throw myself at code.
Which isn't surprising, as we know Kawaki isn't very good at interacting with strangers, which is shown pretty hilariously in the current arc of the anime. Shikamaru then says they kinda need Eida's help to actually find Code because they have no clue where he went. And then Konohamaru adds that Boruto's job isn't just to monitor Eida, but also to mediate between Kawaki and Eida too. And that's because they can't really imagine Kawaki handling this all on his own, and if Kawaki and Eida don't hit it off well, then Konoha's future is in peril as well. So basically, Boruto has to be Kawaki's wingman, and Shikamaru is saying, Kawaki, you need to sleep with Eida or else this village is screwed. Got it, buddy? And then Boruto's basically like, this mission sucks. And can somebody please color this panel of Boruto's face for me? It's gonna come in very handy. Konohamaru then mentions that Sarada and Mitsuki will be watching the three of them from the outside alongside Konohamaru, where their job will be to send Shikamaru's status reports and to wipe their teammates' butts for them, kind of weird way of saying it, and jump in and defuse the situation if any trouble breaks out, since they have no idea when Boruto might run amok again. However, since they don't know much about how much Eida's influence will affect each of them, the sensory unit will also be backing them up, but he wants them to report any odd behaviors they notice right away so that they can deal with it. And that's where I hope Mitsuki notices that the others are acting weird, but Mitsuki himself still acts normal, but we'll have to wait and see what happens. Shikamaru then says that no matter how difficult the situation is, there's an order of priority to the actions they need to take, and the more extreme the circumstance, the faster they need to determine what that is, and blah blah blah. That's a lot of his work as advisor. And so to tackle these issues they need to resolve, this is the plan he came up with. And so he's not asking whether they can do it or not, but rather, will they do it or not? And the answer is obviously yes, they're gonna do it. They don't really have an option to say no. Then we finally cut to Naruto and Sasuke on top of the Hokage building, where Sasuke mentions that this mission is basically just glorified house arrest, but if Naruto authorized it, then he has no say in the matter. Naruto says that Boruto and Kawaki are the type that would run into a fight against someone they have no chance of defeating, just like Naruto would, so there's no way they would just obey if they ordered them to stand aside. And so by giving them a mission and a responsibility, Shikamaru has cleverly put them under control. And so now they'll know what they're up to, which is better than them dying somewhere randomly. Shikamaru then adds that anything could happen, and sometimes they're going to have to play it by ear and make things up on the fly. And that's where we can see Momoshiki just standing there, like he's a part of Team 7 too. And here, we see him standing oddly close to Boruto's face, which is kind of weird. And then Kawaki notices Momoshiki's presence, and so does Sasuke, but then Momoshiki immediately disappears, so I don't know if he's just trying to mess with everyone, or what he's doing, but that was kind of interesting. And then Sasuke has a flashback to chapter 10 when he saw Momoshiki appear in front of Boruto, and says how this feeling is similar to that day, and he's wondering something. And then the chapter finishes off with Eida saying, Shiki dear, you have such intriguing ideas. So, this chapter was very text heavy. It was really just one giant conversation and two mini conversations on the side. And I anticipate that several of you were pretty disappointed with this chapter, especially since we didn't even get to see a single panel of Code and Bug, but I'm gonna wait a month before I judge this chapter too hard, because while I was personally hoping to see Code appear at the end of the chapter, outside of the village or something, this could end up being exactly like what happened in chapter 69, where I thought, logically, Code's limiters should have come off based on the situation, but they ended up really slowing things down and stalling for a whole chapter, and then they came off in chapter 70 instead. And the same thing could happen here. They might just be slowing it down, and he might appear at the end of chapter 74, and if that happens, then from now on I'll probably just assume things will be one chapter slower than I feel like makes sense, because that tends to be the way things go recently. Alternatively, the story might go a completely separate route altogether. Code might not even invade the Leaf Village at all in part 1, and instead he might just amass power over the time skip or something, and instead all the drama for the Leaf Village will happen because of Eida, Daemon, Amado, or Momoshiki. That is still a possibility, and I think it just depends on whether they have Code Invade before this room sharing mission begins, and so the mission never actually begins, or if Eida, Amado, and Daemon arrive in the village next chapter. If that happens, then we'll see the room sharing mission play out, and they might not have Code Invade anytime soon at all, because honestly, it would make no sense from Code's perspective, or from a story writing perspective, to have Code invade while Daemon is already in the Leaf Village, since we already saw Daemon slap him around, so that's not going to happen. He's either going to invade before Daemon gets there, or he's going to wait a long time and acquire a bunch of power before he comes back for round 2. Now, if I'm being completely honest, I think objectively this chapter is fine, but it's not exactly what I hope for a monthly manga chapter. Again, like, the chapter itself is fine, but it's very much written as if it was a weekly manga, and it would have worked perfectly fine if that was the case. The main problem I have is the same one I have with every Boruto chapter, really, and that's just that it feels like too little happened for a monthly release, and that's all there is to it. Usually the chapters are more action heavy, but feel incredibly short, or they are super text heavy and feel like lengthwise they're fine, but the plot doesn't really move anywhere. These chapters would all work fine and great if they were coming out weekly, or even every other week, but we wait a whole month, and honestly, it's just too long. I do agree that if we up the pace more like back when Kodachi was writing, we would be losing out on some of the better character development and plot development that Kishimoto is trying to bring into the Boruto manga, which I appreciate, but the bottom line is the monthly manga setup simply is never going to be as good as the weekly one. It's just not. We either get the snapshot style like Kodachi, where the story remains intense the whole time, but we have to rely on the anime to fix everything they skimmed over, or we get the better and slower story writing, but we have to wait painfully slow for the series to develop. The only reason I kind of like the current style more is because one day when I go back and reread the series after it's all done, I'm going to be glad it was more fleshed out and not skimming over everything, since at that point I can read it at whatever pace I want. The moral of the story is, Ikimoto should get more assistance, and the manga should just have twice as many pages per chapter, or they should release chapters more often than they do, but obviously that's not going to happen, so I'm not really going to get too butthurt about it. We just have to deal with it. But overall, this chapter was alright. It was basically a setup chapter, which hopefully will pay off later on. What interests me the most moving forward is what the heck Momoshiki was doing, Kawaki and Mitsuki's first interactions with Eida, what Eida does while she's in the village, and Amado spilling the tea on what he's planning with Kawaki. But I want to hear what you guys think. Let me know how you feel about this chapter, and let me know what you liked a lot about this chapter and what you didn't like about it. And if there's anything in particular you really wish we got to see, and also let me know what you're looking forward to most in chapter 74, and any predictions you might have for it. Let me know all that good stuff in the comment section below, plus say female Jiraiya, that's important. But that's a wrap on today's video, so thank you guys for watching until the end. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, like the video, and hit the bell icon for notifications. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.